Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well today. My name is Megan Delap, and for this week's discussion and our last discussion for the class, I'll be talking about my research project, which focuses on Moravian women. Now, this discussion and my research pretty much piggybacks off of a discussion I did previously for this class, talking about the traits that made Moravians different from a lot of other religious settlements throughout the 18th and 19th century. And the one that really caught my eye the most was their treatment of and the expectations they had for the women within their church and society as a whole. Now, a lot of the records that I did look at came specifically from records of the Moravians in North Carolina. And using that as well as individual pieces written by Sister Anna Katharina, Adelaide Fries, who is a prominent scholar for Moravian history, compiled that and constructed the Road to Salem, which pretty much just details the story of Anna Katharina. Now, Anna Katharina was a figure that I discussed in a previous discussion, mainly her involvement in the institution of marriage. The institution of marriage was quite different for Moravians, mainly in regards to the issue of remarriage. While this might have been a taboo consideration for other religious settlements at the time, Moravian women had the choice to remarry, but also the choice to even get married in the first place. If a single brother chose a single sister who he wanted to get married to, and the church deemed it a reasonable marriage, the sister would then be asked if she even wanted to partake in marriage. So just having that choice and that freedom to get married and then to further get remarried if it is necessary was a discussion being held in the Bethara settlement and other Moravian settlements, which really sets them apart. While I did focus a lot on Moravian women, specifically in North Carolina, I also wanted to look into and broaden my search for Moravian women, not just in North Carolina, but in other states as well, like Georgia and Pennsylvania. I found this work compiled by Catherine Infall, Moravian Women's Memoirs, Their Related Lives. And interesting here is the way that she broke down her work into the choir systems. Now, choir systems were so important for the Moravian Church. It was found in both for men and for women, but specifically noting women. You could be involved in the single sisters choir, the married sisters choir, the widowed sisters choir, even the younger girls before they were really kind of inducted into the single sisters choir also really had a place in society. But having this work really kind of helps me to outline my research, noting how women involved in different choir systems were expected to do different things within the church and outside of the church with their involvement in labor. Moving on to another work composed by Catherine Infall is Speaking to the Body and Soul, Instructions for the Moravian Choir Helpers, 1785 through 1786. And this is a translated version of the original instructions for choir helpers, indicating what was needed of both men and women who were choir helpers and choir leaders within the Moravian Church. So this was really important because I had hoped to distinguish both church roles and labor roles for women and how those differed from other women in different settlements throughout the time. So having this piece of scholarship really kind of helped to outline how women were expected to be involved in the church, specifically those who were elected to be choir helpers, and how that really differentiated from the men within the church, and then collectively how this looked compared to other religious settlements. But important too is and was a discussion on the labor that was being done by women. Women were involved in heavily labor-intensive jobs within society, which was also kind of uncommon for the time too. While younger girls received an education, they also began learning a lot of the trades that were important that women were involved in outside of their church duties that really helped society to run and to function. Now, pictured here is a couple of my coworkers from historic Bethabara Park. where I've had the chance to work for the past year as a historic interpreter and a historic actor. And really, what we do is we go through and we talk about and we demonstrate to the public the different things that Moravian women, based on their records, would have been doing throughout their time at Bethabara and other settlements. One of the more specific ones would be flax processing. While flax was a necessary crop that was grown in Bethabara and other Moravian settlements, and other settlements outside of the Moravian societies as well, mainly because it was used not just for flaxseed or for cooking, but also to make linen. Now, this was a very heavily labor intensive job, and most of the time, one given family could expect to farm enough and process enough to make about 10 yards worth of fabric, which, looking at our entire costume, which would really dictate one entire outfit for a Moravian woman, it usually takes around 7 to 8 yards. So, just noting how labor intensive their jobs were, really kind of looking at the outcome of those labor intensive jobs and how they supported their settlement doing much of this physical labor.